On December 20th, 1720, the richest man in Paris became a pauper by noon. The Banque Royale's headquarters on Rue Quincampoix was mobbed, not by depositors trying to withdraw their savings, by shareholders trying to sell them. The crowd was so dense that guards had to form a corridor. People were being crushed. And in the chaos, John Law, the Scottish financier who'd orchestrated this entire machine, was nowhere to be found. He'd already fled. But we need to rewind. 10 years earlier, France was drowning in debt. Louis Roman XIV had spent the kingdom's treasury on wars and palaces. When he died in 1715, the crown owed roughly 3 billion livres, an astronomical sum. The new regent, the Duke of Orleans, was desperate. And that's when John Law walked in with a proposition that seemed at the time like salvation. Law was a gambler and a mathematician. He'd spent years in Dutch trading houses, watching how credit worked. He understood something radical for 1715, that you don't need gold to create wealth. You need trust. And if you can manufacture enough of it, you can make paper promises worth more than metal. In 1716, the regent gave him permission to open the Banque Générale, a private bank that would issue paper money backed by royal authority. It was revolutionary. For the first time in France, you could walk into a bank and trade your gold for a note. That note was as good as gold, supposedly. The bank's notes started circulating, and people liked them. So far, this was just a bank, useful but not revolutionary. Law's real genius was what came next. In 1717, he established the Mississippi Company, a trading monopoly granted exclusive rights to French colonial ventures in North America. The company would harvest furs, trade goods, and extract wealth from the New World. On paper, it was a license to print money. Here's the key detail. Law offered the Crown a deal. The Mississippi Company would buy the Crown's debt. The government would issue stock in the company. Citizens could buy that stock with government bonds, converting debt into equity. It looked brilliant. The Crown's debt problem would vanish, and ordinary people could own a piece of colonial wealth. And they did buy, lots of them. Widows, nobles, merchants, servants, everyone wanted Mississippi stock. The price climbed. In 1718, a share cost 500 livres. By 1719, it was 500. By early 1720, a single share was trading at 10,000 livres. People were getting rich on paper. Fortunes were being made in months. The fever was real. Law knew the secret. The Mississippi Company wasn't actually profitable. There were no massive shipments of furs arriving. The colonies were barely established. But as long as new investors kept buying shares, the price would rise. And rising prices would attract more investors. It's a mechanism we now call a bubble, but it was brand new then. Law's solution was elegant and destructive. To keep the bubble inflating, he needed the Banque Royale to print more and more paper money. More money meant more people could afford to buy shares. More buyers meant higher prices. So the bank printed and printed. By 1720, the amount of paper money in circulation had multiplied 5 times over. But here's the problem with printing money you can't back. The paper isn't actually worth anything. It only has value because people believe it does, and belief is fragile. In late 1719, some investors started to wonder, what if we all tried to exchange our paper for gold at once? What if the bank couldn't cover it? The doubt spread, first slowly, then like fire. In January 1720, people started asking for gold instead of paper. The bank honored the requests at first, but the more gold that left the vaults, the more panic grew. The crowd at Rue Quincampoix grew larger, and the noise got louder. By December 1720, the collapse was complete. The bank couldn't meet redemptions. The Mississippi Company's stock, which had traded at 10,000 000 livres crashed to 100. Fortunes evaporated in days. People who'd been millionaires on paper were bankrupt. The regent tried to prop up the system, but it was gone. The machine had run out of fuel. John Law escaped to Venice with what remained of his wealth. He died in 1729, a forgotten man. France's economy took a generation to recover, but what he'd created, the mechanism itself, didn't disappear. It became a template, a blueprint for how to use credit, confidence, and new money to inflate asset prices beyond their real value. The Mississippi Bubble didn't invent financial manias, but it crystallized them. It showed in vivid detail how leverage, printed money, and narrative can create wealth that isn't real, and how quickly that illusion collapses when confidence cracks. The mechanism has repeated itself for 3 centuries, since tulips in Holland, railway stocks in Britain, tech stocks in 2000, housing in 2008. What makes this history matter isn't that it's exotic. It's that the structure is still here. The same leverage, the same narrative inflation, the same fragility. Understanding how the Mississippi Bubble worked, how a mathematician convinced a kingdom that debt could become wealth, is understanding how credit systems work now. The exhibit ends here, but the story doesn't. Every time you see an asset price climbing faster than its underlying value, you're watching the Mississippi Bubble repeat. Every time someone tells you a new technology will change everything and prices reflect that hope rather than current reality, you're watching John Law's ghost. The mechanism is older than you think and more present than you realize. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into how credit systems actually work, from colonial bubbles to the mechanisms shaping your wallet today. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.